Assalamu alaikum and hello. This is Ishan Isaac and I'm running for Commissioner Precinct 3 in Fort Bend County. I welcome you all. We will start right away with our US midterm elections because the US midterm elections are upon us, and October 24th, that's when people can vote early, and the election day is November 4th. Now, why this election is so important? Obviously, whenever there's a midterm elections, it's always seen as, most of the time, not always, as a referendum on the president's policies. But at the same time, we have to recognize and also remind ourselves that a lot of good candidates, especially at the local level, state level, and at the national level, they're also running. And obviously, we have a two-party system, although there are a couple of other parties, but they are not the mainstream parties. So people are overwhelmingly voting for Democrats. And I know, at least at the local level, because a lot of counties are also very focused in terms of their own politics. And for example, I'm from Fort Bend County. It's very heavily Democratic and heavily favoring Democrats, and that is going to be the case locally as well, because locally that's where we have day-to-day interactions with the local government, and there are a lot of reasons, and we'll get to the whys as well, although I know I don't have to tell you the why. But again, since it's a midterm election, so we have to stay focused on locally and at the state and national level. That's where sometimes it becomes interesting, because we have to educate our voters, and sometimes when some candidates, they don't focus on issues, that's where even good candidates, especially from the Democratic Party, they may sometimes not end up winning. So that's important, and there are a lot of key issues that's on the ballot. And at the same time, we also have to recognize that at the end of the day, it's about people's issues, and that's what resonates with people. And these days, our key day-to-day and common sense politics, those are eroding from the mainstream political process, and that's where Americans are fed up of that political bickering and the polarization. And that's where we have to remind the voters that, hey, at the end of the day, let's not get carried away, let's not get too emotional, because there would be a group of people and they will always try to create divisions amongst ourselves. And especially since I live in Fort Bend County, 65% or more, 60% or more people of color. So people from different walks of lives, backgrounds, and ethnicities, and immigrants, and even people of color from African American communities. They live with our white Caucasians and other communities as well. So as you can see, that if just the people of color vote in Fort Bend County, then Democrats will always win. And that's exactly what is happening in Fort Bend County, because we have seen those past policies of the other party, and it didn't serve the interests of Fort Bend residents. So that's why I highly recommend you that do your research, know your candidates, what's on stake. Obviously, we have to save our democracy. We are not, an autocratic or dictatorial type country. We are not. We are a republic, but we are a democratic republic. That's where we have to recognize based on our constitution, right? And at the end of the day, we also have to look at why we are voting for Democrats, because Democrats, they, at least for me, when I go to our Fort Bend County Democratic meetings, and when I look at our Fort Bend Democrats, when I look at our representation in the public office, I see Americans. I see Americans that I see within our county as well. So that's important, because obviously people are representing their own representatives, and they keep us safe. We have very good constables in Fort Bend County. Then at the same time, we also have good judges. Talk to them and they will tell you, they're very experienced judges. They obviously will make sure that we held those violent crime and violent criminals accountable. Then at the same time, protecting women's rights, that's very important. And that's why as Democrats, we want to make sure that women issues are also important. So any marginalized communities, including women, they are important. And obviously, women play a very key role in our societies. We have to save Medicare and healthcare at the same time, equal justice. When we say liberty, equality, and justice for all, so do we just say it or do we really mean it? And that's where, as Democrats, we believe in that. And not only that, but equal pay, and also issues regarding appropriate public education and even free education, where people cannot afford, or even if they can afford it, when we can spend billions and billions and billions of dollars and give those tax breaks to the super rich people who don't even need those tax breaks, then that's not giving fair shot and equal and fair shot with right kind of rules and fair rules for everyone, so everyone can play by those rules, and that's important. And then obviously environmental protection. So these are some of the key reasons we have to vote Democrat. Now, recently I also received this, obviously, in my mailbox, and this is coming directly from Beto, and I really like it because this is a nice brochure, or a, I would say a key information with regards to why we should vote for Beto. State Democratic Executive Committee obviously sent it out. It's political advertising paid for by the Texas Democratic Party. So remember, we are Texas Democrats, and I myself, I consider myself a Texan Democrat, and at the same time Maverick Democrat. And sometimes, you may have a different opinion on other issues. That's why you talk to the people in the party and you work with them, and then you go through the proper channel. And that's what democracy is all about, because we all are different, but at the same time, on key issues, we want to make sure that people from all different walks of lives are representative of this party. And at the same time, it's a big tent party. That's what I say all the time. It's a party with the obviously diversity, and not only diversity, but at the same time, people from all different cultures, they are represented in the Democratic Party. And that's why it's a big tent party. And diversity and inclusiveness is not based on just political expediency. That's why you will see Democrats, they always are representing so many different communities and people, because we are Americans. And look at America. America is a place where you will see people from all different backgrounds and cultures and religions, and even people who are not so religious. And that's what the Democratic Party believes in, that we have a room for everyone, because a big tent party. So when we look at this what you call the mail-in from Beto, let me quote him: "I will be a pro-choice governor who fights for every woman's freedom to make her own decisions about her own body, healthcare, and future," quote unquote, Beto. And that's why we have to vote for Beto. And not only that, but at the same time, this November, we have a simple choice to make. Do we let Greg Abbott's extreme abortion ban, with no exceptions for rape or incest, remain in effect? Or do we elect a governor who will restore reproductive freedom to the women of Texas? And that's the question, that is being asked. And even that was quoted from The Guardian as well, and Texas Tribune. Now, as governor, Beto will fight to repeal the most extreme abortion ban in the country and give women their freedom back. Now, this is where we have to look at the policies of our incumbent governor. And Greg Abbott, if you look at the Texas power grid and the electric grid, how that failed, and we had the winter freeze, and there's billions and billions of dollars that basically, are wasted. And at the same time, when we see there's no infrastructure investments, I mean, who are we going to hold accountable? Obviously, it's the governor. And that's why the Texas grid failed, and everyone saw the consequence of that. And then when they started fixing it, now people are seeing high energy costs on their bill as well. So we have to educate our voters and have a very meaningful dialogue with them. Now, not only that, but at the same time, we also want to hold Greg Abbott accountable for so many other issues. For example, the teachers' pay, and that's why Beto, he is running for governor, and I met Mr. Beto as well, and he is definitely someone who we can obviously connect with, someone who listens to you, and at the same time who we can relate with. And that's what Beto is, and that's why Beto still has the momentum, and he is definitely someone that I'm voting for. And I would urge and strongly urge everyone that we have tried these 8 years under Greg Abbott, and now it's the right time for change. And Texas obviously needs to decide that are we going to live in the past, those policies that obviously don't resonate with Texans, or are we going to move forward with the right kind of choices that every Texan can make? And that's why I'm voting for Beto, and I highly encourage everyone that let's vote for Beto. Now, Beto obviously is a Democrat, and all the Democrats who are running in whichever county. I live in Fort Bend County, so obviously top down straight voting that will be going for Democrat. That's how I'm voting as well. So I would highly encourage you, because there are a lot of good candidates who are now running obviously this cycle, and they are on the ballot. And if people, sometimes they come to me and they say, hey, we were rooting for this guy or that guy. That's why I tell them that go and vote in the primaries, because now we have these candidates who have been voted in by our party, and they are on the ballot, and they are the candidates who are on the ballot in this cycle. So that's why it's so important to vote in the primaries. But obviously that time is gone, but primaries will be there next time again in the next election cycle. So that's why I highly recommend you to vote in the primaries as well. But now October 24th, that's when the early voting will start on Monday. I'm also planning to vote during the early voting period, hopefully on Monday, and you don't find long lines, and just go and vote. Very important election. Now let's talk about maybe a little bit from the aspect of state and national level. I would say national level, because I already discussed the state level as well in terms of what needs to happen in Texas, because I live in Texas. So obviously we are voting all straight, from top down, straight vote for Democrats, because Democrats, we obviously are the ones who are representing our people, representing Americans. And we have a vision, we have a clear cut idea in terms of how we can solve different types of issues. A lot of people are talking about, obviously, the crime is up. Well, in some counties, in some areas, the crime, in fact, is down as well. So there's also some research that we need to do. And at the same time, if we think the crime is up, then we also have to look at that. Are we only going to hold Democrats accountable on that? What about the policies of the governor as well? Because there are some policies that are coming from top down, and that's where we have to recognize that what is our even attorney general, the attorney general of Texas, is doing as well. So we have to understand our criminal justice system as well, and that's why criminal justice reform and criminal reforms and criminal justice reforms are so important. And Republicans can work with Democrats, and we can find common sense issues and find those solutions. In terms of the situation with with the House elections. Let me just talk a little bit about House ratings. This is from CNN, so credit to CNN. So the election center, they are using different race ratings for all 435 seats by the Inside Elections with Nathan Gonzalez. And this basically provides nonpartisan analysis of different campaigns, and for House and Governor as well. So every 2 years, as we know, All 435 House seats are on the ballot. Democrats currently control 220 out of 435 US House seats, while Democrats control the remaining seats with three vacancies. So, to control the House of Representatives, a party must hold at least 218 seats out of 435. When all seats are filled, based on race ratings by Inside Elections, Republicans are currently favored to win 212 seats this November, while Democrats are favored to win 205 seats. 18 seats are currently rated as toss-ups. So that's where the independents and we're talking about the congressmen and congresswomen, the congressional House seats. So that's the picture that we are seeing, because midterm elections are always tough, regardless of who uh, are in the White House or which administration is in the White House. So that's also important. So people who are running for Congress, that's a different ball game, and that's where each district will behave differently in different states. Now let's look at the senatorial races as well. So Senate race ratings. This is again from CNN's Election Center. Would like to give them the credit and courtesy in terms of what they are also uh, providing some rating. And this was last updated October 21st, so yesterday. So Democrats need at least 50 seats to keep US Senate control, and Republicans need 51 to take over, obviously, Senate. 35 seats are on the ballot this year, this election. Based on race ratings by Inside Elections, Republicans are currently favored to win 20 seats, while Democrats are favored to win 12 seats. Three seats are currently rated as toss ups. And now, this is where we are obviously going to look at this election closely. And that's why it's important that in some cases, obviously, it will come down to the policies that are coming out of the White House. So the Biden poll tracking, as you can see, this is the average recent polls, can often paint a more reliable picture of how the public views the president than a single poll can. The CNN poll of polls tracks President Joe Biden's average approval and disapproval ratings in national polls. It includes the most recent results on this question, which meet CNN's standards for reporting and which measure the views of all US adults. The CNN poll of polls does not have a margin of sampling error. So here, this election poll uh, aggregated, averaged different number of recent polls. The latest poll of polls, including results from Pew Research Center, October 10 to October 16, and then the Monmouth University, October 13 to October 17, and then Reuters polls as well from October 17, October 18, and AP NORC from October 16 to October 10, and then CNN September 9 to October 5th, and then NPR from September 27 to September 29. So the latest Biden approval ratings, approval is that the poll of polls is 42% and disapprove 55%. Now, this is where at this time where the problem is, because in some Senate races and in some races for House seats, if people are going to just look at the approval of President Biden, that's where some of the Democrats, and I'm sorry to say, even some good candidates this election cycle may face some pressure. And let's see how this will unfold on November 4th. But at the end of the day, this is what election is all about, right? And obviously, the midterm elections are always tough, and midterm elections are most of the time sort of like a referendum on the administration, whoever is in the White House. So we have to recognize that we're coming out of the pandemic, and then at the same time, in terms of the economy, 40-year high inflation, and at the same time, some other challenges that the administration is facing, not only domestically but also internationally. That's where Americans obviously are upset, and we will see some of that going to translate how upset they are and how excited one is for the administration, that will actually decide the election. And that's in my humble opinion, because I am a student of politics as well, and as you know, I'm involved locally. But I'm rooting for Democrats. So wherever you are, I feel for you. There are good and bad candidates in every party, but I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I tell you because I resonate with the Democratic Party, because this is the party who represent us, even all Americans, people from all different cultures, faiths, and backgrounds. And there is a term called dinos. There are some people, they are Democrat in name only, and sometimes they change parties and vice versa. I always welcome even people who are having challenges, and I feel for you if you are a Republican. I have a lot of respect for people from all different backgrounds and even with different political opinions and viewpoints. But I see that some people who are obviously having challenges in the Republican Party. So I tell them that, hey, come and join us and become a Democrat. And you will see how the Democratic Party works at the grassroots level. And here in the Fort Bend County, we have done a lot of good work. If you look at how this county used to run before 2018, and we have seen drastic changes in the past 4 years within our Fort Bend County. And in Fort Bend County, this is where you are seeing our own people who are also representing us. And this is why Democratic Party is the party that basically stands for you. And I'm not going to mention the R word, which is obviously stands for racism as well. When people run out of ideas and issues, then they in fact start calling people names and slurs and racial slurs, and unfortunately that's not Fort Bend residents are all about. And that will also be reflected, as you will see, in this November polls, and especially starting from October 24th, because Fort Bend residents are very educated, at the same time informed and educated voters, and at the same time, as people who are running, my reminder for you and for myself, although I'm not on the ballot this election cycle, but the reminder is that we have to educate our voters and we have to connect with them and help them understand. And I remember last year when I went to the Fort Bend County Fair, a lot of people, even Republicans, they came and stopped by at the Democratic booth, Democratic Party's stall. And I was there representing my party, and I had a conversation. And some people had so preconceived notions that some of them asked me flat out that, hey, am I for open borders? And I told them, no, I came to this country following the laws of the land, and I believe in legal immigration and laws that obviously are going to apply for everyone. So if I couldn't skip line, why would anyone else should skip line, right? So there are a lot of these different types of propagandic type approaches that some people use, and then they don't educate the voters. And I was able to convince a lot of people, even from the other party, as a Democrat, that what I believe in. So obviously at the local level, I'm running for commissioner. Immigration is not really something that I will have an impact, but I'm focusing on accountability, infrastructure, and emergency management. And I would like for you to stay connected with me, and at the same time visit zishanisaq.com as well, just like my first name, last name, zishanisaq.com, one word. And just join our campaign, because I'm running for our children and our children future, our grandchildren's future. And I believe in inclusivity, I believe in diversity, I believe in let the best idea win, and I believe in fearless leadership, because a leader unites everyone and solving people's issues. And that's basically how we will win together, and I will make our precinct and Fort Bend County an exemplary and model precinct and county in the nation. So a lot of excitement, a lot of exciting things are happening in Fort Bend County. So I thought I should share that with you. And if you have obviously not been participating in politics, I highly encourage you, become a registered voter. Now it's too late for you if you're not a registered voter, but we've been telling everyone to go and register yourself. And if you have not been registered as a voter, then I would say go ahead and do that. So at least you can vote next time. But those who are registered, please go out and vote. And early election dates are starting from October 24th. So start voting, and that's why every vote counts. And I've seen people, lost their election by even few votes, and there have been some example where people have lost just by one vote, and even with several votes. So that's why every vote is important. And in this election cycle, vote Democrat. And I've already laid out all the reasons for you, and people who already know, I don't even have to tell you. But I think it's important that we continue to educate our voters. And you are already seeing why Democrats, they're winning. And yes, sometimes we lose some elections at the national level and at the Senate level, but those are, national and Senate politics and completely different politics. But the local level, that's where we have to stay focused. And I highly recommend, especially people, uh, to always, have your opinion and share those opinions. People share their opinions with me as well, and have a heart-to-heart discussion. And you will find Democratic candidates much closer to you as compared to the other party, and that's a fact. And you will find that out once you start engaging in dialogue and in discussions. And same goes for the candidates as well, because some candidates, when they are not talking about issues, then unfortunately, even if they are Democrats, they may have a tough time winning the election. And that goes for everyone. So good luck to all my fellow Democrats. And I highly encourage all of you to vote Democrat and stay positive and talk about issues. Now let's talk about cricket sports. I know some people who don't know about cricket. A lot of people, at least in Fort Bend County, know cricket because they see our children playing cricket, even adults who are playing cricket. The World Cup for T20, which is another format of cricket, is happening in Australia, and in few hours, 3 a.m. Central Time, 4 a.m. Eastern Time, that's where India and Pakistan are facing each other. So Pakistan and India are playing against each other. Very huge game because of the one of the biggest, in fact, the biggest rivalries. Just to give you an idea, that one of the times when Pakistan and India played against each other, I believe it was a Champions Trophy, or probably maybe in the last World Cup in 2020, which was last year. That's when Pakistan beat India by 10 wickets. And that game was watched by more people than the FIFA World Cup. More than 1 billion people all over the world watch this game. So cricket is huge. And I know in America, we focused, and I'm a big fan of football as well, right? And I'm talking about American football, because when I talk to my friends who are overseas, they are like, why are you calling football? Well, that's a different debate for some other time, but yeah, that's American football. And I also watch soccer as well. So, and basketball, and sometimes baseball. So I follow all these American sports as well, that, especially the football and basketball, and even soccer, which is also growing in America. And as you know, our US men's team and US women's soccer team, they have done great in many tournaments. And even the women's soccer team, they even became champions. So the cricket in America is also growing. So Pakistan, India, they're facing each other. Just some pre-match analysis. According to even Sunil Gavaskar, a great legend of cricket, and he has retired, but a lot of people know whom I'm talking about. So he also favored Pakistan 51% as favorable to win this game, and 49% India. I personally believe that 60% in favor of Pakistan, 40% India. And the reason for that is that Pakistan recently has won the series against New Zealand, and the middle order is also playing very good, and we have a very good pace bowling attack. The fast bowling attack from Pakistan, from Shaheen Shah Afridi, who is fit. He's going to play against India, and also Haris Rauf and Hasnain. All these guys are playing really well and bowling really well. And from a batting point of view, obviously the openers, Babar Azam, Rizwan, Mohammad Rizwan is the number one player right now in T20 ranking. Babar Azam is number three. And the middle order, they are also up to the task. So I think it will be a great game. The game will be played at MCG, which is a Melbourne Cricket Ground, and the forecast has improved, in fact, because uh, the forecast earlier was that it will rain. So a lot of people thought it could be like 1 point each. So let's see what happens. I'm rooting for Pakistan to win. A lot of fans from India wish you all the best. Obviously, let the best team win. But obviously, I'm a green shirts fan, so support your team, whichever your team is. Just like people who follow Premier League soccer, and they are very focused and crazy fans, that I would say, for Manchester United or Manchester City or Liverpool or Arsenal or so many other teams. So at the end of the day, it's sports, right? It's a game, and these sports, they bring people together, but there's always a lot of tension, a lot of pressure when the rivalries, they play against each other. And one of the biggest rivalries, in fact, the biggest rivalry in cricket, is when Pakistan and India are facing each other. A lot of pressure on players as well, but they are professional players, and they are obviously focused on the game, and they have a very good sportsman spirit and good what you call camaraderie, even with the opponent team, Pakistani players, and same with Indian players, and vice versa. And we should not let politics come into the sports, and that's just my humble opinion. And a lot of people, they are agreeing and resonating with this approach that yes, Pakistan and India should play more. And I'm very excited. I'm going to wake up, obviously will probably go to bed early and then wake up so I can watch this game live, and it will be a tremendous game. So again, I would like to urge everyone that stay engaged with politics as well, especially if you are living in America, because it's about our children and our children's children, our grandchildren's future. And this is our country, this is our home, and we live in America, we love America, and we don't have to you know convince anyone that we are sort of like uh, we are sort of people uh, from whatever country we belong to, where we may have to convince or try to help others understand that, oh, we are as patriotic as someone who is not looking like us. And that's where the problem is, and that's why I resonate with our Democratic Party, because I've never felt that I've been discriminated within my own party. So the discrimination and racism, I think, is something that is in every society. In the past several years, we have seen that it has reared its ugly head again. And I don't want to go into those details, obviously, because that person is not that important. But unfortunately, because of how the top leadership sets the tone, that tone has seeped into some people's psyche, and they have thought that now they have given a pass to call each other names and show their inner hatred toward other people. And that's not what Americans are all about. And that's what we saw in 2020 elections. That's why people overwhelmingly voted for President Biden, or candidate Biden at the time. And now, since it has been 2 years, we are out of the pandemic as well, and now it's a different ballgame, and that's why it's politics. But that doesn't mean that we're going to completely change our political ideology or our political vision, and how we feel that Democrats, they have the solution. And that's why Democrats, they have always are on the right side of history when they are talking about issues, and we resonate with Americans because Democrats, they are always, and as a Democrat, I'm telling you this, that we are always focused on common sense politics and standing on what's right and bringing people together, and then obviously ensuring that when you are running for office, then we have to focus on accountability and integrity, transparency, and standing for everyone's rights. That is fundamental to our democracy, to our US Constitution, to how this country has come so far. But unfortunately, there are always some voices who are always in minority, but they try to hijack the voices of majority, or those louder voices sometimes tend to sway in even people who don't want to see any conflict, or in order to avoid the conflict they remain silent, and silence means consent. So that's the reason I'm in politics as well, that let's engage with each other, let's have those difficult conversations, but just to prejudge or judge each other just based on the skin of the color, but not what you bring to the table or the content of your character, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. I mean, these civil rights are so important, and it's in our Bill of Rights as well. And when we see that entire idea is eroding, or people, they think that, oh, they can just violate other people's rights just because I may not look like you, then that's a fundamental problem. That's where America is not going to win in the international competition as well, because other countries, they're attracting talent, and even now a lot of people, they look at America and then they start questioning themselves that, okay, well, am I going to live in America and raise my kids in America, where the future is bleak in terms of diversity, in terms of creativity? Because when we shut down creativity and question people's motives and intentions, and with preconceived notions, then people have to think 3 or 4 times before they even open their mouth or say something. And that's where, in the past several years, I have seen at the national level, even from both parties, although I'm a Democrat, where it has gone too far. And President Obama recently talked about it again, although 2 or 3 years ago, he also talked about wokeism, and he called out some of this identity politics that has gone too far. So we just have to recognize that we live in Texas, and especially people who live in Texas, we do not see ourselves as too much extreme to the left. And that's why the Texas Democrats, we have a huge responsibility, and we can even tell our fellow candidates in other states as well that, hey, this is why Democrats are successful in so many counties, even in Texas, although it is sort of considered as a red state for several years. Although Governor Ann Richards, when she was the governor, she obviously governed for all Texans, and she was a Democrat. So I just want to remind our youth and our young Democrats, and even our youngsters, young Americans, that Democratic Party is the party where you will be comfortable, and you will be comfortable within your skin, and just raise your voices when you see something that does not reflect as something that you do not agree with. That's what democracy is all about. So we have to save democracy, because that's where you will even have an opinion, and public opinion matters, and that freedom of speech and freedom of expression, freedom of religion, all these things matter, and it's enshrined in our constitution. Not just because if someone have a different point of view, or someone has a different faith or different beliefs, they are all Americans. But just because they believe in something different, does that mean that I'm not going to even entertain that idea, or let the best idea win, just because that person happens to have a different uh, thought process? and we are obviously not creating the perfect union for our United States of America. So these are some of the important discussions and dialogue that we as Americans need to have. And I would highly recommend each one of you who are watching this and even may share this later on, that have this discussion. And like I said earlier, at the beginning of this broadcast, the Democratic Party is a Big Ten party. Inclusivity and diversity is entrenched. Both are entrenched in our party. Inclusivity and diversity are entrenched in our party. It's not based on political expediency. And that's where Democrats, we need to stay united as well. And that's why sometimes when Democrats are not united, then the other party, they take advantage of it. And sometimes even some people from different communities or minority groups, they also have friction or polarization within themselves, because we let the wrong or loud voices to not be challenged by the sane voices or reasonable voices. So that is very important. And we need to educate our voters and need to have that honest dialogue. And that's why I feel very comfortable telling all of you guys that let's get out and vote Democrat up and down the ballot. And I wish all the Democrats best of luck. And at the end of the day, whoever is going to win, we're going to respect that person, because the voters at the end of the day will be deciding the election. Unlike, some voices who have called the election as rigged or fraud or what have you. That's why this election is also very important, because we are not going to give that type of conspiracy and that type of complete delusional and very dangerous mindset to prevail in our great country, because that is not what democracy is all about. Democracy is about people, and democracy is about all of us, regardless of who wins. And that's why everyday, common day Americans are fed up of politics. That's what I found out in my campaign and when I'm meeting constituents and when I'm meeting Americans. So that's what I wanted to share, having heart to heart discussion with all of you. And again, thank you so much for watching. And God bless America and God bless you. And I will connect with you next time. Thank you and have a great Saturday evening. Thank you.